Hey guys, what's up? It's me. I know I said I would get to Windows 8 today, but I kind of had a couple of things to do, so I didn't get around to toying with it as much as I did. I'm also trying to tweak it a little bit, and I kind of wanted to include that in the tutorial as much as possible, along with my opinion of what I think of it. So for this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to install SSH, which SSH is a secure shell. The best way to describe SSH is um, if you can imagine remote desktop, only using a DOS prompt or like a Linux terminal would be more efficient. Everything in SSH is based off of Linux, all the commands that you use. So I just noticed that my virtual machine is not connected to the internet. Now, on the machine that you're going to be using to connect, you're just going to want to go to your internet and type in Putty. Putty is free, it's open source. It's a great tool for SSH. It's what we used when I went to school. It's what I use for all of my SSHing. Let's go to Putty. Go ahead and putty.org. You download for right here. I already have it on my computer. This is what it looks like when you execute it. Nothing fancy, just a little screen. Um, Whereas your hostname is going to be the IP address of the computer you're connecting to. Don't change the port unless you changed it in the server settings. And you just leave everything else just the way it is. So we're going to wait for Windows to start up here. I forgot to say, I don't know if any of you noticed my background on my virtual machine. Today's episode is brought to you by 7-Zip. Unlike all the other tutorials and videos on YouTube, I'm not going to do my shout out to them until the end of the tutorial, so you guys can leave and you guys don't have to listen to me yabber about it, rather than trying to fast forward through the video and catch out the real tutorial. So save you a little bit of time there. A little background on my box I got going on here. It's got one user with the name of YouTube, with a password the name of YouTube. I know, really ingenious, but just for making tutorials, that's all I need it for. So there's my user. Just log in. And this is the one that I chose, MOBA SSH. It's not the only one I've used. When I was going to school, I used OpenSSH on my Windows 2008 server. That worked like a charm also. I'm hoping this has the same basic settings as that one did. Alright, sorry about that. I just had to troubleshoot my network again. That wasn't fun. So now you're just going to want to type in SSH server. Windows 7's fine. And I just went ahead and double clicked on MOBA SSH, went through that website, got the installer. And the service is running. I already went through the install. The nice thing about this is that you can choose which users are able to SSH, and right now I just want YouTube to be able to. So we're just gonna change that setting. And one thing I forgot to tell you guys prior to all this is to make sure your firewall is either turned off, which I don't recommend, but I'm going to do for the sake of time for this tutorial, or you add a policy enabling SSH, both for inbound and outbound connections. So I'm just going to turn those off. We got that going. Let's do CMD. Catch our IP address, 83.132. So we can go ahead and minimize that. Go ahead and launch Putty. 192. Alright, you'll get this. That says that the server's key is not cached in the registry. You just go ahead and click yes. Now it's going to ask you for your login. A very important note is that you can only log in to users who have passwords. So I'm going to log in as YouTube with password of YouTube, since that's currently the only user I have enabled in MOBA SSH, as you can see right there. So log in as YouTube's password. And it gives you this nice little screen, useful commands, tells you how to kill Windows tasks, transfer files, sync directories. I'm not going to use any of that, so we're just going to do a clear. And to find out where you are in the Windows file system, you want to type pwd. So I'm in YouTube's home directory, or it would be the equivalent to when you double click on users and go to YouTube, that's the equivalent. So if I do an ls, which is a local directory similar to the dir command in Windows console, you'll see your music, my documents, pictures, desktop, downloads, favorites. We can go ahead and change directory or cd to desktop. Now this text file that I just created on the desktop, if we do an ls, you can see that test.txt is right there. And if we want to view that file, you type in cat or cat test.txt. And as you can see, it didn't open up anything, so there's nothing in that. Now if we want to edit that text file, you type in vi test.txt, hit enter, and now I can type as much as I want to, nothing's going to go in until you click the letter I, and at the bottom right here where it says test.txt, that will change to insert. And to save it, you click escape or insert again, and you do a colon WQ. WQ means write quit. If you didn't want to save these changes, you would just type in Q question mark, which just means quit without saving. So we're just going to write those changes. Now, if we go into the document that's on our directory, hello YouTube visitors, you can see that that's saved. So it's kind of nice to maneuver. The only bad thing is if you're not really familiar with Linux command line, you're not really going to know where you are. If I do a cd backslash, which is going to take me to the root or the C drive, and I do an ls, if you're not familiar with Linux, you're not going to know what any of that means. So let's just say we go into USR, bin, share, sbin. If you're not familiar, you're not going to know what that is. The easiest way I can describe maneuvering around is you always want to go to that home directory right there. So we're going to do a cd home ls, and that's going to tell you your directories. That's going to be the equivalent of, in Windows, if you click on that start, you go to computer, double click C, and you go to users. That's the equivalent of doing this. So going to users is the equivalent of doing that /home. As you can see, you've got default user, administrator, administrators, guest, all users, YouTube, SSHD, SSHD SVC stands for service. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do another test file. So say you want to create a new file on your desktop. Go to cd YouTube, type in cd desktop. We're back at the desktop. There's our test.txt, our desktop.ini file. So now we're going to do a command called touch. Touch means you're creating a new file. So we're going to call this example.txt. Make sure you add the file extension whenever you're creating files or editing files, otherwise it will show up. In Linux, you can do what are called blank files, which is just a file with no file extension. Windows does not recognize those. You can open it up in Notepad++ or Notepad, but you have to do right-click, open with, Notepad, Notepad++, etc. So make sure you do that txt file extension. Or if you have Word, you can do the .docx, .ppt for PowerPoint, .xls for Excel, what have you. So as you can see, we made that file, and that file just showed up. Now we're going to open it in our server. Type in, this is a test. Please use SSH with caution. I'm going to save that and exit. Now, if we do that cat example.txt, it shows you right there. This is a test. Please use SSH with caution. So SSH can be really handy. It can also be really dangerous as far as hackers go out there. They can use SSH to mess with your registry. They can install programs. They can basically, if you open it up and you leave it unprotected, if you have an anonymous user with just a password of 1234 or something very simple like that, it doesn't take much to break into something that easy. The things that I would focus on the most is going into the settings page and changing what port you're connecting to. So by default, SSH runs on 22. So if we change that to 450, and we try to SSH again without knowing that that port changed, you're going to see that that doesn't work. And I forgot what it was already. $132. So now if we try to open it, you're going to see this hang, and the server unexpectedly closed network connection. Okay. Now, like I said, by default, Putty runs SSH on port 22. So along with that IP address, we're going to need to change the port to 450. Let's see. What I change it to? 450. Alright. restart that service. Sorry, I forgot to restart it. Whenever you make changes to settings, you do have to restart the service for those changes to place into effect. So now it's up and running. We click connect. Yes, and there we are, using that new port. There it is. Now, keep in mind, I did say this is highly dangerous if you don't change those port settings. Also, it's extremely dangerous if you have your Windows firewall turned off. I would not advise doing that. I did that for the sake of trying to do this tutorial in as little time as possible. And that's your basic install of using SSH as a server and how to connect to it on a Windows machine. SSH can also be ran from Linux operating systems as well. A little bit trickier to configure, but for most of the operating systems it's actually built in. You just have to go in and activate it through the netsysv command, and that's it. Another thing, actually, before I start on WinZip, if you are going to use this and you are behind a router or firewall, you must allow port forwarding to work. If this machine wasn't on my local network with me, that would not work. So if you have the IP address of, let's just say, if you had the IP address of 172.65.123.11, you're going to need to go into your router and go to port forwarding. And then go to, sometimes they'll have SSH already as a predeterrent, along with like FTP and TCP, UDP, different protocols. And you're going to want to enable that port to port forward through your firewall or through your router, so you can have connectivity. Otherwise, you'll just go in an endless loop. And then instead of using that 192 IP address that I showed you that I connected to with Putty, you'd be using the 172.65.123.11 or whatever that IP address was. And so that's basically how to set up SSH server and using Putty as a client. I hope you enjoyed it. And now I kind of want to give recognition to 7-zip. 7-zip has been around for about, I found out about it about 8 months ago, so it must have been around. It's fairly new. It's not ancient. It's not like WinZip that's been around forever. You just go ahead and go to SourceForge. And what 7-zip does is it is the free version of WinZip, plain and short. WinZip is, I think it's $14.99 to buy. 7-zip is absolutely free. It can open RAR files, zip files, zipx files. At the top of sourceforge.net, you just type in 7-zip. And right there, your first link. Let's go ahead and download that. It's not going to have the pretty ribbons and banners that you see when using WinZip. It's not going to have this pretty little banner, you know, with these nice ribbons and backup and tools and settings. But it gets the job done. It does it extremely efficient. That's what it looks like when you download it. It's a great tool. I highly recommend it. If I didn't have WinZip already on this machine, I would use 7-zip. I have it running on my web server as well as my desktop computer and my media center PC. All those are using 7-zip because I couldn't justify paying $15 for an extra 3 computers when I could get the exact same thing for free. So really easy to use, really easy to zip files as well as unzip files. Gives you where you want to save it to, where you want to extract the files to. It's just really, really handy. It does come with one-click zip also. It's just a great tool, and I hope to see you guys in my future videos.